this is going to be worth the price of admission. Here we go.
In this episode, we chat to a guy in a workshop who loves hanging around fast cars.
My earliest memory is probably 1980s, mid-1980s, playing with matchbox cars in the sand at Bay Park with Simon Wills and Matt Halliday and those guys when their dads are racing.
And we sit for a chat with a girl that also loves hanging around fast cars.
Yeah, I enjoy the fast-paced life and I enjoy going away, and it's just great fun.
Hello and welcome. I've come down to a little suburb just south of Auckland City called Grille, and in this little suburb is a workshop, High-Tech Motorsport. It has been around a very, very long time, and like so many in New Zealand, it is family orientated, family run, and well, all their customers really are family too. So let's go inside and have a chat with the crew that just like to make things go fast. So here we are inside the heart of High-Tech Motorsport, and Grady Homewood, look mate, thanks for inviting us into your man cave, and it really is, because the differences in cars in this workshop is incredible. You guys don't look after one type, and this is awesome.
No, we don't. We're probably one of the few workshops in New Zealand anyway that do the range of work we do. Everything from 1950s, 1960s single-seaters right through to modern Trans Ams and Porsche GT3.
And we've got coolness right here for a start, don't we? I mean, Anglia, awesome.
Absolutely, you know, everyone relates to the Anglia. Harry Potter, Harry's on the back quarter. This is a pretty special car, this one. It's sort of period correct in the way it's been modified. It's got a downport whole bay head on it, which was like the trick modification back in the 60s. Yeah, it's competed in Targa on and off over the last 15 years and had some pretty good results, outright, you know, class wins and that sort of thing.
And so you guys, you look after it, you keep her running for the owner,
yeah,
and it's your job to prep it, get it out there,
yeah,
and then he brings it back, he says, please fix her again.
Pretty much. The car originally, a lot of the work was done in the UK, and it came here in bits and pieces, and we assembled it. But yeah, we look after the preparation and the engine and gearbox and diff, and yeah.
People love this stuff, mate. This is old school stuff. And then beside it, of course, we've got a bit of a family theme going on here with this machine.
That's right, bit of history there. It's the 1986 New Zealand Sports Sedan Championship winning car, built by my father and a very good friend of his, Kevin Weston, who was one of the top engineers in McLaren in the 70s. Runs a Ford BDA, 2-litre alloy block engine, about 640 kilos. 300 horsepower, so
it's not a bad power to weight ratio.
Pretty good, you know. It compares to modern Trans Am.
When you see something like this, you'd automatically think they're going to drop a V8 in it.
Yeah, that's right. And it was, you know, for its time, it was pretty revolutionary. Everyone was shoehorning big V8s into, you know, Mazda RX-7s and Toyota Starlets and that sort of thing. And everyone thought it was a bit of a gimmick when it first came out, but you know, first meeting it sort of silenced them all. So. Yeah,
that is pretty cool. Okay, and then next door, Trans Am stuff. I mean, we're talking serious cubes, serious horsepower. Everything about it is just pure race.
That's right. It's a purpose-built race car. This is the last chassis built by Megatech, by Mark Birch Motorsport. We work on two of the cars that they built. The car that they took to the States with Kane Scott, Kambita Laguna Seca and that sort of thing. And this, with what they learned up in the States with that car, they put into this car. So this car never went to America. It was a frame sitting in Mark's workshop, and the running family brought it, Dane and Dennis, and we assembled it up last season, and yeah, we're just doing a little bit of off-season preparation and ready for the GT1 Championship this year. So.
And it's very cool when you see Hendrick Motorsport on the rocker covers. That's a cool factor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the history of the engine, but you know, no doubt would have been a NASCAR at one point or another. Yeah, so a 6-litre engine, around just under 700 horsepower. Yeah, purpose-built race car. So.
That is incredible. So that's what, GT1?
GT1, yeah. The car's only done 2 meetings. We did Taupo, which was a bit of a shakedown for us. Had a few sort of teething issues, but and it rained on the Sunday and we didn't have good wet, so we decided we'd put it in the truck. We come back and did a bit of, you know, a bit more work on it, a bit more development. Went to Hampton Downs back in February and won the round down there. So. Yeah, the biggest issue at the moment is Dane lives in Australia, so getting backwards and forwards is, you know, a little bit of a logistics nightmare. But
okay, so we go from a full-blown, purpose-built race car from ground up through to an SS2000 Honda.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really get any chalk and cheese, does it?
No.
Yeah, it's all motorsport.
It is all motorsport, and this is our bread and butter stuff. You know, we do a heap of stuff for SS2000, Mazda Pro 7, that sort of thing. You know,
Dyno tuning BMWs.
Yeah,
in the
that's right,
background.
BMW E30 class cars. So yeah, you know, again, this car's in for a little bit of winter rebuild. We're doing a gearbox in it and upgrading the differential, fitting power steering back to the car. So yeah, it's I enjoy the SS2000 class. We give a lot back to the class. We sponsor the class. More the social side of it. We sponsor the barbecue and the Saturday night drinks.
The most important part of motorsport,
yeah,
I
but
think.
it's a good way to give something back to all the competitors rather than just giving it to one or two with sponsorship cash, you know. So, and it works pretty well for us. So.
It sounds like we've got a lot more in-depth talking to do, so I think you should make me a coffee and we can talk motorsport.
No problems. How do you have your coffee?
Well, Grady, where did all this start?
Well, for me, I mean, my father's been involved in motorsport since 1951, so I mean, it was inevitable that at some point in my life I was going to end up at the racetrack. My earliest memories probably 1980s, mid-1980s, playing with matchbox cars in the sand at Bay Park with Simon Wills and Matt Halliday and those guys when their dads were racing. So, you know, I sort of went away from motorsport a little bit. My parents couldn't afford to put me through go-karts or anything like that, so I always wanted to be an aircraft engineer. So I started my training out at Ardmore mid-90s, and I did that for 10 years. And when I had enough money to start racing, I started racing. So Century GT Cup was 1998, I think I started, 97, 98. Guys like Johnny McIntyre were in the class then, so it was, you know, it was a pretty tough class. And with the demise of that class, we went to 2-litre touring cars. And that was, we had the ex-factory Honda Integra, Keith Sharp car, which was a pretty good car, had a lot of money spent on it. We did a bit of development on that and run that, and had some pretty good results, run inside the top sort of 5 or 6. It was never really fast enough to compete with the factory BMWs and Toyotas and that sort of thing. But and then when that class fell over, or when it, you know, when they pulled the pin on it, we went to NZV8s, but I just didn't have the budget or the backing to really go anywhere with that. So I had a lot of people were involved with, a lot of guys that I was racing with, wanted a hand to work on their cars and that sort of thing. So I sort of started going on the track and helping them out, and from there it sort of grown into engineering and turning spanners and that sort of thing, to the point where you know, Dad was running cars out of here, NZV8s out of here, and I come on board to look after that side of things, and it's just grown from there into, you know, running Trans Ams and building cars. And
you've just stepped into it from there. So how long was it running with your dad before you decided to really join the fray?
Yeah, well, Dad's a mechanic by trade, and he's had service stations and that sort of thing. And he stopped doing the general mechanical side of things probably about 1990, and concentrated on, that's when the classic racing thing sort of really started taking off. A lot of guys were restoring old cars and that sort of thing. And a lot of the cars that Dad's restored are cars that he worked on back in the 60s and 70s. So, you know, it was sort of natural that people came to him to get their cars, you know, rebuilt and repaired. So.
And from there, people are just continuously bringing you in their machinery.
Yeah.
For you guys to set them up. So you're not necessarily a turnkey motorsport, as in you own a car and you supply it to someone to lease and drive. They bring it to you to say, yep, I want to go fast.
That's right. We don't own any cars. I mean, a lot of our customers, a lot of our classic customers and that sort of thing are successful business people or guys that have got pretty well paying jobs now, and when they were younger they couldn't afford to race cars, but they haven't got the technical nous to look after them, so they bring them here and we prepare them. You know, we'll take them to the track and look after them and that for them, and do any work that's required at the track, and any work that's required between meetings and that sort of thing.
You can scratch build a car, or you can look after a client's car. That's fairly unique, isn't it?
We can. I mean, yeah, we've got the stuff. We've got 5 full-time staff now, and we have a fabricator that comes in on contract. It's a very, very experienced fabricator. Build a lot of WRC cars and that sort of thing with Possum Bourne. So, you know, we can build anything from a you know, simple modified production car, you know, right through to a space frame Trans Am. You know, it's and you know, we do a lot of preparation, a lot of fabrication, do engines, gearboxes. You know, with the dyno we do a lot of tuning. One of the few shops that really covers that spectrum of. Do
you do speedway, anything like that?
We're actually involved in pretty much all aspects of motorsport. Speedway, I mean, Dad, back in the day when the Cosworth BDP, which was a, you know, like the Ford BDA based motor, was the motor to run at Western Springs. Dad did a lot of engines up there and that sort of thing. We've got a lot of customers that have moved from like go-karts through circuit racing, and now they're at speedway. So we had a couple of guys in midgets and that, the cars we work on and that sort of thing. So
how on earth though do you manage to set yourself up to do, say, Dane Running's Trans Am car, and you know the settings for tarmac, and he's going to Pukekohe or Taupo or Hampton Downs or wherever, you tune a car, you set it up for that, and then some guy brings in a speedway car and says, I want to go fast round and round a dirt oval. Like, do you have a whole book of settings, or has it all been stored in your head?
You don't. I mean, I'm pretty fortunate with like the Trans Am and the NZV8s and that I've been able to work with some very good teams and some very good people. And the Speedway thing's kind of the same. Like the guys that are doing it, that are racing at the Springs, they want to go fast. So they've got the right guys building the cars and that sort of thing. Guys like BSL and that sort of thing building the cars. You know, and we just sort of do some of the preparation and assembly and that sort of thing. So they've got good gear to start with. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're not fully at times relying on you for how do I set this car up to go fast on the track.
That's right. You know, a lot of it is, you know, with the case of the midgets, a lot of it's tuning with the mechanical fuel injection and that sort of thing.
Okay.
One of the cars we assembled did all the oil plumbing and fuel plumbing, all that sort of stuff, and you know, fitted the engine to it, made all the headers and all that sort of thing. So fabrication and preparation
So for you on a lot of that stuff, it's we'll build it. You take it to the track and it's going to be good, but you need to set it up.
Some of that stuff's like that, yeah.
Right.
I mean, my background is circuit racing, so that's where my knowledge is. You know, some of the guys that work for us have got a background in rallying. They've worked for Motorsport and that sort of thing. So they've got the experience with setting up rally cars and building rally cars and that sort of thing. So you know, we've sort of got all the bases covered there with what we do.
And because of that, you've seen a lot in New Zealand motorsport. You've seen a lot of change. You've seen a lot of good, and you've seen a lot of bad.
I have,
and there has been a lot recently. I mean, we've got rallying has had all sorts of issues. There's now 2 factions in rallying. The V8 touring cars, 2 factions in that as well. I mean, you must obviously have thoughts on that. You're involved in the background, and not on the political side, but you must have, like, sometimes you must wake up in the morning and what is going on? Yeah,
you do. You know, sometimes you shake your head at some of the decisions and that sort of thing, and you know, we're not involved in the organiser or anything like that, but you look at some of the decisions people make, like running 2 events, similar events on the same day in the same, you know, same part of the country and that sort of thing, and all it does is dilutes the numbers and that sort of thing, dilutes the spectators, and it's hard for us as a business trying to, you know, prepare 3 or 4 cars to run at 2 events, and we've only got 4 or 5 staff. So you know, we've got guys at one meeting, guys at another meeting and that sort of thing, and it sort of compromises a little bit what, you know.
So is there an easy fix though? From the outside looking in, from behind the tools, is there an easy fix?
I don't think there's an easy fix. I mean, I don't think there's one person or one organisation that can fix it. I mean, I think everyone's got to have a hand to play in, you know, in sorting it all out. I don't think you can say, well, it's Motorsport New Zealand's problem, they've got to stop issuing permits, because, you know, their role is to govern the sport and that sort of thing. I mean, it's got to come back to organisers and stuff. They've got to work together. I mean, surely it's better for the sport if they have an event on, you know, a fortnight later, the same style of event. Then they can share competitors and share spectators and that sort of thing. And I mean, I suppose to a lesser degree, the competitors too are partly to blame, because, you know, they tend to go and support one event over another or something like that. You know, so. I think it's...
and this is across, you think, rallying and the tarmac?
Yeah, I think so, and I think you're starting to see that now. I think, you know, a lot of the competitors and that are getting a little bit frustrated that they'll turn up to an event and they might have 3 or 4 cars to compete against, and, you know, on the same weekend, you know, 3 or 4 top guys are at another event. So you're starting to see it now that they're starting to work together. Certainly Rally Extreme and New Zealand Rally Championship with Wairarapa a few weeks ago, you know, they had, you know, good strong entry in 15 or 20 top cars that are, you know.
So what you're saying there is often that would be split between 2 different events happening at the same time. Finally they came into one.
That's right.
So are they racing in different point system, different championships?
I think they are. From what I understand,
it awkward, doesn't it?
It does make it awkward, especially for a spectator or someone that's not, you know, not up to speed with what's going on in the background. You know, you're not necessarily having like the Richard Masons and the Chris West and that sort of thing are competing for New Zealand Rally Championship. Then you've got the Alex Kelsey's and that sort of thing that are, you know, they've built weapon rally cars that don't really comply with New Zealand Rally Championships, but they're in Rally Extreme and they're still competing for outright, you know, outright stage times and that sort of thing, but, you know, different championships.
Yeah. It leans itself towards what was happening with the BNT V8 Super Tourers having a special machine, and the old TLs and then the TLXs, they can't compete on the same grid because they're different entities, but they both are V8 touring cars, and everybody deserves to see them going at the same time.
That's right, you know. And I mean, it used to work pretty well with the Porsche Championship with the 996 and the 997, you know, with having two grids on the same, you know, on the same field and that sort of thing, on the same track. But yeah, I mean, the TL cars, I mean, they're old cars, you know, they were probably getting past the use by and something had to change. You know, it's just unfortunate that the 2 factions, you know, went off and did went off and did their separate things with the TLX cars and the Super Tourers, because potentially it could have been a really good series if they'd waited 12 months for one class or the other to sort their stuff out.
Yeah, although thankfully, from what I'm hearing now, is that well, it's true. The TLs will be the official championship for the Motorsport New Zealand Championship. Super Tours will remain on theirs. Yep. TLXs will circulate, but won't be getting any championship from it. I mean, some people have bandied around that the TLXs could possibly become GT1s.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
I mean, they're a well-built car. And I mean, I'm sort of neutral, not on either side of the fence for the Super Tours or the TLX cars. I mean, I've had opportunities to work on both and that sort of thing, and they're both well built and both well prepared. And they've both got their place. But yeah, I think the TLX cars, I mean, the strength is definitely with the Super Tourers, and that's where the good teams and the good drivers and stuff are. So I think that's probably the class that's going to flourish. And it's just pretty a little bit disappointing that they can't accommodate the TLX cars because of differences in that with the cars to run against the Super Tourers. But that's probably, I mean, essentially they're a purpose-built race car, so I think GT1 or endurance racing or something like that's probably where they'll.
And of course, you've had cars that are in that, so they could do their job.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did the 3-hour race and the 1-hour races a few weeks back, and Lance Hughes was there with his TLX car, and I mean, it was a very, very competitive car.
If we go, say, now to Targa, that is a event that has just flourished, hasn't it? It's just caught on and gone crazy. Peter Martin has done such a job to build that.
He has, and I really enjoy Targa. It's pretty much my 1 week off during the year, which isn't really a week off. It's hard work running a couple of cars for a week, but Peter's certainly done a sterling job of getting that event to where it is. It had died off a little bit, and it needed some fresh blood, and he's certainly got got it up and running and got cars at his sheds and that sort of thing.
And you guys do a fair bit of Targa cars.
We do a lot of Targa cars. And not just the modern stuff. We do classic stuff as well. So yeah, like the Anglia we had over there before.
Yes.
Barry here, he's I think he's done every Targa now for 15, 20 years, something like that. We've built him up a Rover SD1, which is a little bit of an unusual car, and he ran it in the Targa Rally Sprint Pukekohe earlier in the year, and surprised a lot of people. A lot of people sort of said, well, why are you running a Rover? The Kirk Bonanza, the guys to beat in their M3s and that sort of thing. And he won the classic side of it. So we're taking that car to the South Island for the week down there for the main event Targa. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Barry's normally a front runner in the modern class in a Toyota turbo powered Mini, like the one behind me here.
Just harking back to trackside motorsport, a series that falls over. Well, falls over is probably the wrong word. It's just done its time, like say Suzuki Swifts. It's a one brand make. It probably had done its time. And there are other categories that have been like that over the years, but there are categories that are no longer existing that should in New Zealand. Yeah. Ones that I know that should. Do you have any that you think should be there?
Yeah, I mean the one make stuff has always sort of had like a short lifespan. If you look at not just Suzuki's before that, Sentra GT Cup and Peugeots and that sort of thing, there's 3 or 4 years till the next model comes in, and then the manufacturer sort of the support comes out of it and that sort of thing. But probably the one that disappoints me the most is Formula Ford. If you look at all the top level drivers that are overseas, Fabian Coulthard, Mitch Evans, Chris Pither, all those guys have all done a stint in New Zealand Formula Ford. And it's not just a training ground for drivers like that, there's mechanics and engineers and that sort of thing. They can learn about data logging systems and suspension setup and that sort of thing. And there aren't other classes in the country where you can learn those sort of skills. Most of your production-based classes, you haven't got a lot to change suspension setup-wise. A lot of them don't have data logging, so it makes it hard for us to, when we're looking for new staff and that sort of thing, to get guys that have got that, that range of skills when it comes to actual real-world experience. There
really isn't anything between Formula V, the V-dub-powered ones, and say a car. There's nothing in between really, is there?
There's nothing really. The Formula First has its place. I mean, that's a great entry level class, and like young David that works for us, he's come up through that class in leaps and bounds, and he's a front runner in that class. But it does teach you racecraft, and it does teach you car control and all that sort of thing. But a stepping stone between a Formula First and a TRS car, it's night and day. You've got wings, you've got slicks, you've got a proper gearbox and all that sort of thing. 3-way adjustable shocks and aero and all the stuff that a Formula First hasn't got. Formula Ford's a stepping stone to that. It's got you've got the adjustable shocks, and you've got the things you can play with. You've got a decent gearbox, and I think it's
so it's needed.
It's needed for sure. Although it's not just New Zealand, where even Australia sort of struggles a little bit for numbers there. But certainly some of the skills I've got with race car setup and engineering and that, I learned a lot of that in Formula Ford. So You know.
All right, so a revolution's needed.
Yeah.
We've got to bring back the Formula Fords.
Yeah, I think if you ask any of the more experienced guys, Kenny Smith or Jandals, Mark Sheehan, someone like that, they'd say the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to go find a Suzuki Swift or maybe a nice little Ford Capri. I understand that one's got a V8 in it.
It's got a V8 in it. It's a Piranha replica,
Right.
Game Targa classic race car.
But I think I can find something, and then I come see you and we talk turkey. Yeah.
Yeah, we can sort you out one.
I love your work, mate. Hey, thanks for sharing your workshop and a bit of your time. Thanks for the coffee. It wasn't bad at all. But I'm going to head off.
No
Let you get
problems.
back to work. All right.
Yeah, not a worry.
Yeah.
Plenty to do. So.
All right. See you, mate.
Sorry, I'll do your dishes, mate. No worries. See you later.
Coming up next, I sit down with this young lady to talk careers and horsepower. So here we are at North Shore Mercedes-Benz, and we're chatting to one of the girls in the world of motorsport. Her name is Frances Buckley, and well, she may be normal, but she's also not normal because she is a mechanic in motorsport. And Frances, thanks so much for your time and sharing your Mercedes-Benz showroom here and getting off the tools for a while to talk to us. Where did it all begin for you? Because people just generally do not associate women, one, as mechanics or engineers, and two, into motorsport. Is that what you wanted to do when you left school?
No, when I wanted to leave school, it was all about working on horses, going overseas, and I did that. I worked with an Olympic show jumper for Australia, which I absolutely loved, but no money in it. So I came back to New Zealand and I thought, oh, what do I do now? Had an interest in cars, so I did a pre-trade course, and then it all started from there.
Okay, so go back to the no money. Only if you own the horse there's money in it, but if you're working in it there's none.
Yeah.
Okay, so you decided then to go into cars. That's quite a leap. Horses and car, mechanic, it generally doesn't cross over. Why'd you do it? Why choose it? Out of all the things you could have done in the world.
I'm not sure, I just had that interest because I didn't know where to go next, and kind of had that little interest in the cars, so I thought, well, might as well go do a pre-trade. After doing my pre-trade, however, being a female, it was very hard to find a job and do that. I did a lot of door knocking and didn't get anything, so I went back to the horses and did track work. And then time came, I thought, oh, I'll try and apply for one more job, and Miles Group took me on down in Christchurch.
Was there a lack of respect when you got into the trade, right through to the training itself?
Not really. Like, I was lucky getting with Miles Group because they just took me in, took me under their wing. A couple of guys there helped me along and showed a lot of respect to me and encouraged me a lot.
And what about the other mechanics around the place who see a female in the workforce? I suspect 20, 30, 40 years ago, as well as it being unheard of, you would almost be shunned. You know, that's not woman's work. Does that happen now?
It occasionally happens now. It's not as much as what it was many years ago when I first started.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of people I will work with in a workshop and they just have no respect for me whatsoever. But, you know, it's just one of those things.
Yep.
They haven't dealt with having a female around, and they eventually realise that I can actually do what I can do.
When did it suddenly broach to motorsport? Because that to me is another leap.
I had a friend that was down in Christchurch for Ruapuna. Her partner crewed on an NZV8, and I went out with him, got to know a guy called Steve. He found out that I was a mechanic, and he just said, if you ever want to get into it, give me a call. And at that stage I was still doing my apprenticeship. I'd never even contemplated doing motorsport, and I thought, oh, this guy's crazy. And about 6 months later I was like, well, actually it'd be cool to have a look and see what it's all about. And I gave him a call and yeah, went along.
So what year was that?
I think that was 2008.
Okay, so a lot has gone by in that time, and we've seen you hanging around all sorts of cars in these garages.
Yeah.
But you've really got a passion for the motorsport side now, haven't you?
Yes, I absolutely love it. It's something I'd like to get more into a full-time role, because it's just a bit of a pain turning up the weekend and playing with a car to do it the whole time.
I suppose, and you can say whether it is or not, is it difficult to just turn up on the Friday and work on a car that you haven't worked on prep-wise before the meet? Is that difficult, or is it not so much?
It's not so much, but
Okay.
I do find it more difficult because I'd like to be doing the stuff in behind the scenes and pulling stuff apart and seeing actually how it all works, because at a weekend we don't really get to do too much apart from set up the car, fix stuff, make it go faster, but we don't actually get to pull stuff apart and see how it all goes together.
You've delved in various NZV8 crews, and you've had a good session on there. Any highs and lows that you can remember from the time in NZV8s?
It was a pretty fun time in Invercargill when it was all wet and there was Paul and Boothie and they're all changing tyres every 5 seconds, and they were pumping all the water out of the pit lane and everything, and I think Boothie started from pit lane and still managed to get second in the race, so that was quite cool.
Do you like that sort of pressure, that rush, that whole buzz of, right, come on guys, we've got to do this, and running around in small little circles, or what appears to be from people outside a garage, mechanics and engineers running around in small circles, but you're not really.
No.
But that's what it looks like. Is that the buzz you like?
Yeah, I enjoy the fast-paced life and I enjoy going away, and it's just great fun.
During the week though, you don't get to work on race cars, but you get to fix other people's cars.
Yes.
So you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a direct crossover. You work during the week on cars, so that's a help. It's not like you're a builder on the week, and then you turn up to a race car. So it does help that you work in a proper workshop.
Yes, it does.
Albeit not a race one.
No, but we work on some very nice cars here at Mercedes.
What is the attitude from clients? Clients turn up, you get handed a car, obviously from the service department says, right, you've got this one to do, whatever the job is, replacing a gearbox, replacing an oil pump, whatever you have to do, right down to a warrant. When a client comes along and sees a female working on their car, just harking back to what we spoke about earlier, do you ever pick up any vibes that, hang on a second, this isn't right?
Occasionally, yes,
Okay.
We do get some that are like, oh, what's she doing? And then you get the other ones that think, oh, that's really awesome. And then you sometimes get some ladies that will ring up and book their cars in, especially for me to work on.
That's a bonus.
Okay. They just like the idea of a female working on their car, so it's a win-win, I guess.
When the fans, and I'm still going on the stereotypical path here, the fans see you working on cars in the garage, usually mechanics, we notice they're too busy to notice what's going outside the garage. But surely you must pick up that the fans have noticed you working inside a garage.
Yes, I think the last round at Hamilton, Pukekohe, I had a couple of little girls get my attention, and they came over and they're like, oh, I thought it was really cool, and they wanted to be mechanics too, just like me.
So then, even if you don't want to be, you're almost becoming a role model now for that kind of lifestyle for females.
Yes, and yeah, I've had, when I was with Boothie, some of his fans got me to sign their shirts and all that sort of stuff too, which was quite unique. I felt a bit special.
You've gone to the level now above what many mechanics do for, say, hobbyist motorsport mechanics, because you've had a go and a stint more than once in the Australian V8 supercars. So what went on there? Who have you been with in the Australian scene?
Last year I went and crewed for Dick Johnson Racing, just to help out kind of thing. At Sydney, it was an interesting experience.
You weren't just a floor sweeper, were you?
No. We fixed some broken stuff because the car that I happened to be on didn't finish any races, unfortunately. So yeah, after the first race we had a bit to fix. No, I quite enjoyed it.
So that's DJR, and you've had others?
Yeah, I went over in May to Perth for HRT.
Right.
Where I was number 3, filling in. Really enjoyed working with them. They were a great bunch of people. Explain
that, number 3. What does that mean?
You have like a number 1, number 2 and a number 3, so I was the bottom feeder of the crew. So basically I just got told what to do and swept and cleaned and kept everything tidy, and got to take some wheels off and on and change some parts, and that was just about it.
Every crew has to have that level, obviously. One day you want to be number 1, or you want to be a 2, because people have different levels they want to go to. What would you like to go to if you went to, say, the Australian V8 supercars full time and their tier level system for the mechanics engineers? Would you want to be a number 1 or a number 2?
Definitely want to be a number 2, and then once I've gained a lot more experience, and hopefully, why not?
You go for number 1.
Yeah.
Your ultimate goal is Australian supercars, or is there something even higher?
No, I just think like, if I could get a full-time role in New Zealand, I would stay. but realistically there's not many jobs that are going in New Zealand. So no, I'm looking in Australia. I've got some contacts in Europe that I'm also looking. So it's just one of those things, you just got to wait for a position to come up.
I suppose there's a lot of people knocking on the doors to get a job as a mechanic on a race car crew.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially full time as well. And of course no one wants to take you on until they've had a play with you kind of thing.
Yeah. You've got to prove yourself.
Got to prove yourself.
Okay, so how many times do you think you'll have to be in as number 3 before they'll finally start looking at you?
Oh, I don't know, but I think, you know, HRT I'm impressed, so
Yep.
I've got an amazing reference letter off them.
Mm-hmm.
Campbell Little has given me an amazing reference too, so, you know, it's all starting to stack up for me, and hopefully I'll get there one day.
And then when you're not at race weekends and you're not here at work, you're still in the paddock jumping around on your horse, because that really, even though motorsport seems to be in your blood now, you do have a true love for horses, don't you?
Yes, the horses will always be around, and I've been riding them since I was a little nipper. But yeah, I'm out competing, I'm into eventing, and I do a bit of side saddle as well.
Now that's old school stuff.
Yeah, side saddle was quite cool. Mainly do that for fun.
So if you move to Australia, full-time supercars, if that happened, your goal, what would that do to your horse world?
I'll put the horse on the plane and take him over there.
You'd be still going and doing your horses. You
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to let that go?
No, I could let it go for a wee while, but it's just my passion.
It's all about adrenaline with you, it seems to be. But thanks so much for your time. It was nice to get some insight into the, well, it's probably a little female aspect inside of motorsport. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on Behind the Grill. In the next show, we'll be chatting to this young fella who seems to spend more time at a racetrack than anywhere else.
I've probably spent more weekends with my parents than with my mates, you know, so, but it's cool, you know, we're quite a tight family, we've got a really good relationship within our family, and we've kept us out of trouble, which is nice.